We've all been waiting for it, the listening video that focuses on responding. After all, when you find yourself in a conversation with your partner, your spouse, co-worker, or boss, aren't you really thinking about how you're going to respond the whole time the other person is jabbering on? Responding correctly is harder than you think. So let's learn about this final step in the HURIER approach to listening. In looking at how to respond, we should remember two concepts. The first concept is that effective communication begins with listening, not speaking. The second concept is that every time you communicate or respond, two things happen. The first thing that happens is that your behavior either contributes to or hinders the accomplishment of your task. The second thing that happens is that your relationship with the other person is either strengthened or diminished. We can use these two concepts to guide our discussion of how we should respond in the listening process. Let's begin by looking at the first concept. Effective communication begins with listening, not speaking. As students of communication, it's easy to focus most of our time in conversations thinking about talking. The HURIER approach turns this on its ear. Literally, you might say. We have two ears and one mouth, and we should use this as a guide. I've tried to introduce the idea that when you are listening, you need to step back and breathe. Step back and check your emotions. Step back and listen with empathy. Hearing means that you purposefully pause your activities and focus on the auditory function. Understanding means that you realize each party creates meaning individually, and your task is the co-creation of that meaning. Remembering means that you disengage listening filters and actively try to remember what's being said. Interpreting means that you work to place yourself in the other's shoes as you listen. And evaluating means that you use your critical thinking skills, not to be negative, but to weigh thoughtfully what's being said. In effective listening, you do all of that before you respond. I want you to stop and think about one thing right here. If you consistently practice these 5 behaviors in your communication with the people around you, how would this change your life? This leads me to the next concept that should guide our discussion of responding. The second concept is that every time you respond, 2 things happen. First, your behavior either contributes to or hinders the accomplishment of your task. And second, your relationship with the other person is either strengthened or diminished. Work and relationships. These are really the 2 things that make up a big part of our lives. This concept reminds us that how we respond, that act, has consequences, positive or negative. The best way to respond to others, whether you are trying to accomplish a task or you're dealing with a relationship, is to be open, honest, and problem-solving oriented. One way to describe this is that you should be assertive and supportive. Being assertive in responding to others is not being aggressive or emotional. In fact, aggressiveness and emotions cloud the issues and the co-creation of meaning. If someone's being aggressive or emotional, or you are in your communicating, stop. Just back up a minute and breathe. There are various specific ways to handle other people when they are communicating like this. But the overall guide is to listen first. Just let the other person talk it out. Then ask polite, clarifying questions to make sure you understand their position. Next, don't focus on communicating your position. Focus on communicating what you are interested in achieving. And finally, ask the other person if you both could come up with possible solutions together. If you are to be open, honest, and problem-solving in responding to others, you should not only be assertive, you should be supportive. Being supportive means that your goal in responding is not on being defensive, placing blame, or staking out your ground. These responses are the response of a person who doesn't hear, understand, remember, interpret, and evaluate. Instead, use I statements, seek cooperation, and be willing to phrase or feed forward your comments with words like, "it seems to me," or "as far as I know." Earlier, I asked the question, if you consistently practiced real listening behaviors in your communication with the people around you, how would this change your life? This is why I teach effective listening. I want your life to be different because you've learned the attitudes, principles, and skills that make up real listening. See you in the next video.